4:30 Mickey Cowboys. Max Olson at 4 covers college football with The Athletic. And then Grayson at 3:45, Sikkim 365 on Baylor recruiting. And there's a couple of others along the way that we want to add between now and what could be the start of football season.
Yeah, it's kind of hard right now to have too many, analysts analyzing because there's not much to analyze. Always plenty to talk about with the Cowboys, that's for sure, and they're always of interest, but certainly we've already got a very solid group that's been constructed on a weekly basis, and it's only going to get stronger, once we do have some more to grab onto and sink our teeth into with stories around the various leagues upon their return. So, yeah, it's a really solid base group, and it's going to be a lot of fun to, continue adding on all the various kind of random somewhat interviews that we've had as well, like Tom Flores earlier, who was fantastic. So, yeah, we've got a great group.
Dawson.
Yeah, Andre Dawson tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Andre Dawson, Kurt Warner at some point this week. So, Homer Drew, Scott's father, put out today at Team Heartfire, the beginning of our new At the Tournament team has been officially announced. Former Valpo basketball coach and recent College Basketball Hall of Fame inductee Homer Drew will lead the way, hashtag Team Heartfire. And there are names, Isaiah Austin, who's a part of this. My good friend Wade sent this to me. Let me see who else is a part of that team. I just lost the tweet, but
Isaiah Austin, Quincy Miller, Tweety Carter, and Ish Wainwright.
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
Right? There we go. All right, so we'll come back and mention that a little bit of what is all that? What does that mean? Also, I scared Leon on the Riverbend Liquor and Wine text line. I said, by the way,
I'm scared of anything.
I heard you really are down deep inside it. You love Dak. Hell no. Sorry, I said I'm just trying to rattle you. Well, you did. All right, coming up next, we'll also open up at 254-339-1122. The phone line's available. The text line available. Same number. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio.
Are you in the market for a new home or are you trying to sell your current home? We need to contact my buddy Lance Donaldson and the Donaldson family team, brokered by eXp Realty, 254-214-3713, or online, lancedonaldson.exprealty.com. Lance is one of the best listeners you're ever going to meet. And that's important because he's going to hear everything you have to say about what you want from your home, what you want from selling your home, and he's going to find you a perfect fit. He's been selling homes left and right, and it's because he really cares about what you have to say, and he really listens to what your needs are, upsizing, downsizing, whatever it is. So, again, that number for Lance, 554-214-3713, or online, lancedonaldson.exprealty.com.
Live crawfish is back. The 30-pound bags of live crawfish, as delicious as you could imagine, back at Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. $3 a pound, 30-pound live crawfish bags are available. You order by Thursday at noon. You can pick up your customized order anytime on Friday afternoon until 6 p.m. And the drive-thru now open at Waco Custom Marketplace Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can still order what you want from their butcher shop, including beef and poultry, seafood, and also pork. And, of course, their bakery. You can order bakery. You can go online, WacoCustomMarketplace.com, or go by the drive-thru. Waco Custom Marketplace, live crawfish available Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6.
Texas board-certified personal injury trial lawyer and Baylor alum David Willis and Baylor alum Parker Willis are ready to help if you or a loved one has been wrongfully injured in an auto accident, SUV rollover, industrial accident, 18-wheeler crash, or were seriously injured by a defective product or recall drug. Call them for a confidential and free case consultation at 1-800-GOT-HURT or visit them at texastriallawyer.com. Principal office located in Houston, Texas.
Our communities are facing unprecedented times. At Boozer's Jewelers, we care about you and your family. If you're like me, your home has unwanted or unused jewelry lying around. They can have value, and that means we can turn that jewelry into instant cash. This is a great way to get the most value from your unwanted jewelry. At Boozer's Jewelers, we buy all kinds of unused jewelry. So give us a call and let us give you peace of mind and cash for your unwanted or unused jewelry.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine has their easy-to-access drive-thru open and convenient and clean in-store location on the corner of Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. Riverbend Liquor has the best and most extensive variety of craft beer selections in Waco and Balcones whiskey, including single malt, pot still, baby blue, French oak, rye, and brimstone. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, family-owned and operated, and a hidden gem in Waco on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street. And find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
I hate my job,
but I don't mind getting up in the morning.
I dread each day,
but I can't wait to get out of bed.
You ask me why,
and what I'll say to you is true. Get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Waco's newest gym, Halo Athletic Center, 5725 Bagby Avenue, right behind Region 12 and across the highway from the Central Texas Marketplace, where motivation, inspiration, and hard work are the driving force. State-of-the-art equipment, indoor and outdoor track, locker rooms, showers, yoga and bar classes by Duality Yoga, bod pod potty composition analysis, and registered dietitians, all under one roof, where we rise above. Come join the Halo Athletic Center and be a part of the change, your change.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. The Sikkim 365 Radio call-in line segment is sponsored by Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue, where curbside pickup and drive-thru are now available. Next in line.
We'd love to get a phone call from you here in this segment. We have John McClain coming up in the next segment. Be a part of the show in this segment, 254-339-1122, and I'll send you a free round of golf. We'll do that right now, a free round of golf to Cottonwood Creek Golf Course. Kenny Dutron and that great staff. That course is in fantastic shape. Drove by there because I haven't played so long, but drove by there, and it's gorgeous. You had the recent rain. What was that, on Sunday? I'm sure that just beautied it up, just more beautiful than ever before. Cottonwood Creek Golf Course right there on Bagby. And right now, be a part of the show. 254-339-1122. First couple of callers in this segment will send you a gift certificate for a round of golf to Cottonwood Creek Golf Course with Kenny Dutron. And the questions are, how good would LeBron, you hear this, and we get caught up in this. It's just, how good would LeBron have been? Just because he has a big body, he's athletic, that doesn't necessarily mean that you transfer into being a good football player. Although he does seem to be, if any, a football player would have been fantastic. Does that mean Karl Malone would have been a good football player? You're a little bit stiff to me.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know. His hips, that's the difference. It's all in the hips. We heard about Sean Oakman, one of the things about him, because he was tall and 6'7" and all that, was that because he was tall, he didn't have great hips. And that was one of his weaknesses.
Well, he was built like an upside-down triangle.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, all his weight was on top, and he had very skinny legs compared to his upper body. So it was almost like he was always off balance. You know what I mean? He's always sort of in a way. I think LeBron's an incredible athlete. He could have probably played just about any sport and been successful. I don't think that's a guarantee in any way, but I understand why these conversations are fun. I also hate these conversations because people will say so emphatically what they feel like would happen, and there's no way of knowing. There's absolutely no way. But do I think LeBron could have been a good football player? Absolutely. He teased that a long time ago when he was first in the league. He was doing Gatorade or a Nike commercial, and he was in a Browns uniform. And the thought was he was going to go play for the Browns, who were, your typical Browns team. They were lowly. No one cared. They weren't any good whatsoever. And so the thought was, LeBron will join the team and, give him a little boost. But, he never pursued that. And we'll always wonder how good he could have been at that sport or at any other sport for that matter. But no, he's a very fluid athlete. I just don't think because you're big, though, that you'd automatically translate. He's one that probably would, though.
Yeah, the body, the physique, the arms, he's got all that. He's got great speed as well. But again, it doesn't necessarily. There's toughness. That isn't. I think he's, like you said, one of the few. But just because he's big and strong and fast and athletic doesn't always translate. It's like some guys could be that good looking, but you get into a ring and you fight and you're a boxer and you just get knocked out by some guy that you don't think, just because it's a different sport.
Well, I mean, some guys are just tougher. I mean, like you said, they're tougher. They do. I mean, LeBron's one of the few. LeBron, because he is so tall and fast. I mean, he is, end line to end line, one of the fastest players in the NBA, especially for as big as he is. So yeah, he could certainly have an impact. But some of those guys, look, Rico Gathers, everybody thought like, oh, this will work out eventually like Antonio Gates, and it didn't.
No.
And Rico is athletic as hell. He really was. You watch him do things. I would watch him do things in practice thinking like, well, why don't you just do that all the time? And part of it was Rico wasn't all the way in.
I was going to say there was some want-to that was lacking, I think.
Yeah, he wasn't all the way in. He was, he was
getting money for his rap career, basically.
Yeah, well,
in some ways.
The great Ron Swanson, of who I have a picture on my wall, as a saying, is don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I think he was very blessed with that opportunity, but I think as time sort of went on, it became clear that he was maybe a bit satisfied with where he was. I don't really know for sure. It just didn't end up working out, and that was fine. They gave him more than enough time for it to work out. I think they gave him far more time than any of us had expected. But, yeah, I mean, LeBron, he's built like a prototypical NFL tight end, basically, and he's getting beat up night in and night out in the NBA as much as you can get beat up in that sport these days. But, I mean, he can have the measurables. He can have the athleticism. He might have great hands. He might have all those things. But we don't know how he would react to coming across the middle and getting popped one good time. I mean, he might completely fold and not want to play anymore for all we know.
Okay, I'm just off the top of my Eric Weddle, who's a small safety. I mean, he's not, he's cut and everything, but he's not Ronnie Lott when you look at him, or Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor would have been the guy who you would probably match up with a guy like LeBron. Would we say
Sean Taylor would be a good basketball player because he was that kind of? I mean, see that?
We don't do that as much.
My point being is, okay, so Bob Sanders or Eric Weddle, a little small safety who are just tough little sons of guns that just want to slice people in half. LeBron James over the middle and gets hit by a guy who's 5'9", but that 5'9" is coming like a cannonball. Do you want that? And I think part of me thinks that that's what Rico didn't like, is that, yeah, it's great catching passes and jumping on the ground and a guy kind of lands on top of you, but when you have to chuck a defensive lineman or you have to fully engage, when you have to line up and J.J. Watt is your assignment at that moment, do you want any of that? No,
it's a different mentality. It's a different mentality, even if you transfer to do whatever you do in baseball or the NBA. One note, Dan Graziano, ESPN. Here's something we discussed. Tom Flores, I loved his response to what we mentioned about the Rooney Rule. NFL owners approved new measures on Tuesday aimed at improving diversity in coach and front office hiring, but they stopped short of approving a resolution that would award minority hiring with draft pick compensation. Yeah. That got shot down. That didn't last.
You know what my theory on that is? Because the idea that they have is better, and they've set up, these kind of legacy programs and things like that last a year. They're paid positions for coaches to get in and minorities to get in. They've also, like I said yesterday, they now can't just interview one person and check the box. They have to interview at least two people outside of their organization.
Right.
So they have to make it an interview process.
So that was tabled, and they may vote on it later on.
My theory on the draft pick incentive thing was the better idea wasn't as sexy. It was just like, we're just going to make him interview more people, which I think works better anyway. But giving them draft picks will get discussion, and it's a bad idea. It's kind of like, hey, guys, let's go rob a bank. And you're like, well, Paul, that's a terrible idea. We can't rob a bank. We'll go to jail. And we don't have the expertise and all these things. Like, you know what? Let's get some ice cream. Well, it's not as sexy, but everybody likes ice cream.
Teams will now be required to interview at least two candidates outside of their organization for any vacant job, including at least one minority candidate from outside the organization for any offensive, defensive, or special teams coordinators jobs. And then there's other notes about anti-tampering, the Rooney Rule.
But that's also
much more.
That's also how you get more minority head coaches. You get more minority coordinators.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Unless you're Eric Bieniemy, who is a star. 528. Well, we don't know if he'll translate to be a head coach, but he deserves the opportunity, you would think, or has earned that opportunity.
Absolutely earned the opportunity.
When we come back, we'll talk to John McClain about this, also bring up Tom Flores, and much more. Sikkim 365 Radio continues.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. Ideal MRI is a small family business here in Central Texas. We're open to support our community through this crisis. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at IdealMRI.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one, commercial, farm and ranch, or residential. Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction with a team of 24 experienced agents who are excited about serving you. Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is Waco, and this is Boozer's Jewelers. When locals want luxurious jewelry and at a competitive price, they come here. This is Brad Boozer. He's the owner of Boozer's Jewelers. Boozer's is the premier wedding ring store. They specialize in loose diamonds and wedding rings. At Boozer's, they have 7 jewelry counters dedicated to wedding rings and diamonds only. They also specialize in heirloom jewelry, custom jewelry, watches, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Stop on in today and discover why the locals trust Boozer's for their jewelry.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. The Sikkim 365 Radio Live Guest VIP Hotline is sponsored by Stonewood Dental. We are all in this together.
He's a Hall of Famer, writes for the Houston Chronicle, covers the NFL. John McClain, Baylor alum, Waco Trib, Waco, Texas, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. John, I think I know the answer, but I'm curious because you do see at times there seems to be some support for Tom Flores. He joined us today. How about that? Tom Flores, 4-time Super Bowl champion, player, assistant coach, twice as a head coach. His overall record is pretty much 500, but he has an incredible postseason record. Has his name ever had any traction for the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
In the 28 years I've been on the selection committee, no, except recently. And it's weird, but it's only recently that it has. And one of the things I think that worked against Tom Flores is when he got out from the Al Davis umbrella at Oakland, he went to Seattle as the head coach and general manager. He bombed out. And it wasn't like Jimmy Johnson when he went to Miami. He didn't go to the Super Bowl, but he got to the playoffs. So there's a lot of coaches out there who are deserving of recognition in the Hall of Fame, and Tom Flores is one of them. And I don't know that he'll ever get in, but only recently has he become the subject of serious consideration.
What do you have a benchmark for coaches or quarterbacks? I mean, in your head, or what's your baseline criteria for a Hall of Famer?
Paul, I'll say this. For people that are first ballot Hall of Famers, it's got to be a no-brainer, no question. Now, there's been guys get in who weren't no-brainers and no question. But quarterback, and this is something that I used in my presentation for Warren Moon, who was elected on the first ballot. I've never held it against the quarterback if he doesn't go to the Super Bowl. But if he wins Super Bowl, that's a feather in his cap, as it will be for Eli Manning. But there's much more to it than Super Bowls. You have to look at the owner, the patience of the owners, the coaches, the system, how many times they changed on him. Was fortunate enough to be like Peyton Manning and have the same offensive coordinator and only two head coaches and in one spot before he went to Denver. And so I think when it comes to quarterbacks like Dan Fouts, Warren Moon, they never went to the Super Bowl, but I think most people would agree they deserve to be enshrined in Canton.
John, the NFL owners have approved the Rooney Rule changes. Teams required to interview at least 2 minority head coaching candidates and at least 1 minority candidate for coordinator vacancies. This is not exactly what was talked about even in the last couple of days as far as rewarding teams if they were to hire a minority candidate, reward them through the draft. So that's not going to happen as it originally was stated. But what are your thoughts on the tweaks, changes they've made to the Rooney Rule?
Well, the best thing they did was make it where a position coach, doesn't matter if you're a minority, if he wants to be a coordinator and he's under contract, you have to let him go. As it is now, you can keep coaches in position coaches, even if they're offered coordinator jobs, and they've changed that. It's because of this, because some position coaches, teams were interested in them as coordinators, and they were minorities, and they were turned down. To me, that's the biggest thing. There was no way this proposal was going to pass so quick. There's no reason for it to come up last. I think it was leaked and floated as a trial balloon to gauge the reaction around the NFL, because nobody's getting fired and hired right now. There's no need to worry about this till after the season. They had virtually their May league meetings, and then the next one they'll have one in the winter, and then where they vote on this will be too late in March. That one was canceled this year. So I would suspect that they'll vote on it like in October, and they don't have to have a league meeting to do it. They can just call them together on the computer and do it, or the telephone. So I don't think it was right to give a team like Dallas picks 10th in the 3rd round and another team below them fired their coach. And to me, doing this, giving draft choices or enhancing draft position because you hired a minority is rewarding you for failure, because that means you fired your coach. You fired your general manager. They should be rewarding the teams that do well. So we'll say the Cowboys were picking in the 3rd round and the team that had a minority moved up one spot ahead of them. And when the time came, that team took the player the Cowboys wanted. That's not fair. And so the other thing is, and this part I like, one of the considerations was if you lose a minority, you get a compensatory pick. So that means you might be more inclined to add more minorities, develop them on your staff and in your front office, knowing that you could lose them, and you wish them the very best, and then you might get something out of it.
Yeah, we had Tom Flores on, and John, it might be a good quote for you guys, right? I mean, he basically said he did not want the token hires. He did not want the token interviews. He goes, listen, I paid what now $2 billion for a football team. I want to hire whoever I want to hire. That's from the guy who was the first minority head coach to win a Super Bowl.
The Warren Moon, when he played for the Oilers from '84 through '93, he was a trailblazer. He's still the only African American quarterback in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I used to do stories with Warren about race. And one of the things he told me in the mid 80s was, until you have owners who are minorities, you're not going to have a lot of minority general managers and coaches. Owners want to hire people that they feel comfortable with. And there are going to be some that are comfortable with minorities and some that aren't. And of course, we don't have an owner who is African American or Hispanic or Asian or whatever. And I think if like a couple of guys, Rick Smith, who was general manager here for years, Rick resigned because his wife was dying of cancer. He's ready to come back. He disclosed to Sports Illustrated about 6 weeks ago. He had interviewed twice with the Redskins. Well, now Ron Rivera is running the personnel department there, even though he doesn't have the title of general manager. But I think Rick will get a job. I believe Louis Riddick of ESPN, who was a player for 7 years, was a scout in personnel department. People see Louis on TV. He is a very good talker. He makes a whole lot of sense. I think Louis Riddick, who's interviewed for a couple of jobs as general manager, is going to get one. You know, it hurt the league when Ozzie Newsome retired. He's one of the most successful general managers ever, and doesn't have anything to do with him being a minority. But they've gone from at one point 8 minority coaches to I think 4 now, counting Ron Rivera. Somebody told me the other day they saw a list of African Americans, called it minorities, and minorities, and they put Ron Rivera Hispanic in the white, and that's not right. And so I think that you can interview all the people you want. The more people interview, better chance they have of making a positive impression. Where if that guy doesn't hire you, he may tell us, you know, you might check out Craig Smoke. I interviewed him last year, and he really impressed me. Yeah, I'll check out Craig, and then maybe Craig gets hired. So you can't make somebody hire him. You know, Flores didn't like it. Tony Dungy didn't like it. Anthony Lynn didn't like it, and that's why it's been tabled.
John, you mentioned Ozzie Newsome. He is, well, I mean, one of the best GMs maybe in the history of the NFL, and he's already a Hall of Famer as a player. Would he go? Could you add his GM to the Hall of Fame as well, or what would the process be with that?
No, they wouldn't do that because he'd just be taking up a spot for somebody else. You know, Ozzie was a great tight end for the Browns out of Alabama, and then he moved into their front office in Cleveland. A lot of Browns fans blasted him for staying in the organization, and he orchestrated Super Bowl victories for the Ravens, hired John Harbaugh. They became one of the best and most consistent franchises last year. They had the best record in the league, and even though it was his first year he wasn't the general manager, he still was in the front office and was a sounding board for his longtime right-hand man, Eric Costa, who was the new GM. And so, yeah, I think Ozzie's one of the all-time greats, but instead of giving a guy a Hall of Fame spot 2 different ways, we need to recognize other deserving candidates like Tom Flores.
John, The Last Dance has come to an end, sadly, for a lot of people who watched that over the last few weeks, but it hasn't stopped a lot of outlets from speculating on, you know, maybe the next wave of The Last Dance-style documentaries. And I saw a CBS article where they mentioned, you know, 5 eras of teams that they would like to see covered Last Dance style, and the 90s Cowboys is one that gets brought up a lot. The modern-day Patriots was one mentioned, 70s Steelers, late 70s, early 80s Raiders. Do you have a favorite time period from a particular team that you would like to see Last Dance style?
Well, I'll tell you who I would like to see one done like Jordan would be Tom Brady, because Brady's a very private person, even though his wife is an international model and celebrity. But I would love to know a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff about Brady. We've seen 2-part football life on Bill Belichick, so that gets run a lot. So ordinarily, I would want to see Belichick, but I've seen enough. I know all about him growing up, all about him as a coach in Cleveland with New England, but Brady's the one I'd like to see. Another person I'd like to see would be Mike Tyson. Think of the life that Mike Tyson led. Tiger Woods would be another one. There's all kind of athletes out there. I would love to see a great crew deep dive into them as Jason Ayre, the director, and his crew did on The Last Dance, which I think, along with OJ in America and Baseball by Ken Barnes are the best documentary I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was very good. Paul, you good? Greg, good. John, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Sick 'em. Stay
'em.
safe. Have a great rest of the week.
You
Thank
too. That's John McClain, Houston Chronicle Hall of Fame writer with us.
Do you have one? Do you have a athlete or a team or something that you would want to see? I mean, not I say Last Dance style. It's just documentary style. Is really what I mean by that.
The first half of the decade, like 92 to 96 Cowboys, because they had a lot going on.
Yeah,
that's a popular pick.
Plus, they were the Cowboys, so you know you're going to get ratings. But they also had so much going on behind the scenes. The problem is you have to capture a lot of the things that the Bulls and others captured on video. Otherwise, it's just words. The other part of it, I would think that those Raiders teams, and I don't know what decade it would have been, which one of the 70s or the 80s or the 60s, those were, you talk about just, and I don't know how many of them actually played on the same team at the same time, was Stabler, Hendricks, Matuzak, and then Alzado and others.
Dr.
Ben
Death,
Davidson, Al Davis.
Lester Hayes.
Yeah.
Todd Christensen.
Yeah, those were, that would have been an interesting mix.
First wild card team to win the Super Bowl in 1980.
1980 beat Jim Plunkett. That's the long pass. That was it. Cliff Branch that caught the long touchdown pass. One of the young men. He died recently, wasn't it? He died, and he never has been a part of the Hall of Fame, which is an argument for him too. I would think, what would be it? You couldn't do it, but wouldn't it have been nice to follow Wilt Chamberlain around?
Well, that'd be Skinamax.
Maybe the greatest player ever. And on top of that, maybe the greatest player ever.
I would just like a documentary on, what did he say, 10,000? Was that the number?
The number of women he slept with?
Yeah.
Yeah, something
10,
like that.
10,000?
Yeah.
Like I mean, there's no way to confirm that.
No.
But
I believe it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I do believe it. I don't have any reason to not believe it. It does sound funny in your head when you start breaking it down. Okay, like if he was playing for 20 years and he's 365 days in a year, 10,000, you're starting to do that whole thing. But I bet there were nights where, he got into the double digits. I would not be surprised by that just as far as what was around him and what was going on. So if you count that, then 10,000 is maybe realistic. But, that would be a Cinemax Last Dance version for sure. I'm trying to think. Mike Tyson, John brought up. Mike Tyson's been doing a lot more recently. He had the whole "I'm going to come back" kind of tease that I'm not really thrilled about, just because he's too old to be in the ring anymore. But he is a very interesting guy. He's been doing a show called The Hot Box. Apparently, Mike's a big weed smoker.
Tyson?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So he has been doing this show that I've seen on YouTube, because he had Eminem on the other day for like an hour. And he just sits down, and Mike typically smokes while he sits and talks to like celebrity guests. So like Snoop Dogg will be on there, Eminem was on there, and various others. And it's a unique look at Mike. He's a very interesting guy.
I didn't know that, but that's fine. To each his own. All right, we're going to come back, and we got to keep going.
Keep going.
All right, here's the pop quiz. I'm going to pick and choose. We kind of discussed the most maddening Baylor football loss. Paul said when Baylor, with the quarterbacks all injured, Lynx Hawthorne lost to Texas 23-17. That's the game when Johnny Jefferson fumbled near midfield. It was breaking a long run. They ran out of time there. Grayson said 2014 West Virginia. They had, a good team. They ended up just too many penalties. Got beat, probably cost them a playoff. That was after the week after they beat TCU.
Yeah.
Ashley mentioned, and I brought this one up, the 28-21 double overtime loss to TCU in the icy rain in Fort Worth. Jason King mentioned that same loss, 23-17 at Texas. This one was in 2018. Is that right? Was that the Jameson Houston interception of Shane Buechele? I don't remember exactly how that one went.
Oh, you mean
that was the game they should have won.
Yeah.
Taekwon Thornton had the BS
penalty. Yeah, because 18 was, that's the game when the Brewers throwing the ball in the end zone that would have been this shocking upset.
And Jameson Houston intercepted a pass. They didn't even bother to review it.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And
it was an interception.
It was an interception, and then Texas scored a touchdown on that drive.
Very, very soon after that. I thought the one, to me, was the loss in 2016. They're still undefeated with all the dark clouds. They go down there. They have the ball like the entire fourth quarter in UT's red zone. Hasty fumbles, Seth jumps and hurdles, almost scores, and they lose the game, and then all of a sudden the floodgates of even more negative just unload, and then I think the next week they're destroyed by TCU.
They had really 3 fluky losses to Texas in the last decade.
Well, look,
now
there's a support group of colleges around the world that get to meet and talk about the times they got screwed.
CDs love listening to start to finish on long car rides or a workout. You mentioned Foo Fighters, although you said also no one does CDs anymore. Foo Fighters, Wasting Light. Grayson said a tie between Take Care by Drake and Montevideo by Sam Hunt. Ashley mentioned
Grayson.
Let's see. Van Morrison, the Eagles, Bob Seger, da-da-da-da. He goes, but I'd like to go Van Morrison. I love the genius of There Will Be Days Like This.
Now, who's this?
Ashley Hodge.
Okay.
Jason King mentioned roommate. His college roommate and best friend Brandon is the son of country singer Sammy Kershaw, queen of my double wide trailer. So I'll give it politically correct answer and go with the greatest hits. I also mentioned Dr. Dre's The Chronic.
Oh, that's good.
I mentioned if it's a long drive, anything Elton John, but Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. But then, and Craig will be maybe stunned by this, if it's a workout and I need a heavy, deep beat, don't even know most of the words, I mentioned Eminem with Lose Yourself and Is It Not Afraid?
Yeah.
Those are a couple of songs because it's just a deep, deep type music. Even if I can't understand half of what's being said, it's just kind of some great rhythm. So those are you can go to the premium site. Sikkim365.com and look at the answers, including who improved the most basketball. Who would you add to the Big 12? Almost everybody mentioned Arizona and Arizona State.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but
sense.
Yeah.
It just makes sense. They're right by here. I mean, they're just state away.
Jason King mentioned Cincinnati and Memphis.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Memphis. I wouldn't mind Memphis at all because Arkansas is not leaving, I think, or Arkansas is not realistic. I do think Arizona and Arizona State might be more realistic as we get close to this TV deadline, and the Pac-12's deal hasn't really worked out all that great, and the Big 12 has really kind of solidified itself. They're steady. I mean, they're still not the Big 10 or the SEC, the paragon of, this is the way you do it, but they've figured it out, and I think they match up better with the style of football and where they recruit than maybe the rest of their conference does.
Here's from TJ on the Riverbend Liquor and Wine text line. He goes, I go with Slipknot at the gym.
Dang.
Right.
Huh. Very nice.
That's pretty
heavy metal
intense,
right there,
yeah.
huh? That's some heavy duty stuff. All right, so and there's others. In fact, okay, what the recruit that you most excited but never panned out? B.J. Thompson for Grayson Grundhofer. He's the one that's from Arkansas, Craig.
Yeah, he was a really good pass rusher from Arkansas that just lost his way, I guess. And yeah, he displayed a really great ability off the edge. He could have had a tremendous year this past year. He could have absolutely had a freakish year this last year with like double-digit sacks. I'm not even joking with that, given the help he would have had with Roy and Lynch. But, whatever happened with him and, football, I don't know. But I haven't heard a single thing about the young man since he left.
Yeah. Matt Rule told me, and I don't want to quote him because I can't remember exactly what he said, but it just broke his heart.
He just needed to put on some.
B.J. Thompson that had to leave. He was kind of had to leave.
He just needed to put on some weight, which he would have done over the last couple years in the weight room, like everybody else does. That's all he had to do. He had the first step. He had the speed. Had the edge moves. I mean, gosh, we got little flashes of it. All he really needed to do was just keep maturing, and whatever got in the way in life got in the way, unfortunately. But, yeah, he's one of many tales like that, but he would be up there for me as well because I think he could have been good. Jason
King mentioned Odell James, but he goes, I'll actually go with Ben Gay, the running back. Ashley mentioned old school Lewis Fight, one of the great players ever from Central Texas, from Waco High. Then, Paul, you and I mentioned Robbie Rhoades.
Well, when Art Briles, when I asked him the question, how fast can he help you? Because Robbie had his stats were insane coming out of high school. The kind where you're like, this guy's got to play right away. And he said as soon as he parks his car, And then,
exactly what he said.
Yeah.
And I used that quote in my summary.
Yeah.
That's on National Signing Day. As soon as he parks his car on campus. That's exactly right. You know, the one that I wish I could have seen play in the old Browns offense was Cam Martin, because he was such a great kid. We interviewed him. He was such an entertainer, a personality.
Yeah, he had a good personality. I didn't get to be around him too much to really, I guess, see much more than just the initial, kind of energy that he had. But no, he was a really, good young man. He was very responsive, as far as interviews and things like that go. One of my most vivid memories is that last spring game that Browse was coached for, when Cam was amongst the recruits that were out there, and he had been committed to Baylor, but there was a lot of talk about him in Texas and other schools coming after him. And that day, I was standing 3 feet away as Art Browse walked over to check out Cam's brand new gigantic BU tattoo on his arm that has since been covered up since he went to Auburn and not Baylor. But I remember that vividly, and I think he would have been really, really good in this offense, just like Devin Duvernay would have been really, really good in this offense as well. So, for him, it started off really great. He kind of had the reverse Devin Duvernay career. It started off really great at Auburn. He played pretty much right away from what I remember, and then as his career kind of kept going, he saw less and less time, I guess, as they just, recruited new guys and they passed him up. But yeah, Cam was a good guy.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other schools that wanted Cam. I think Auburn, Baylor, and Texas were the ones who were telling him he was going to be a running back. Mm-hmm. And then everywhere else was telling him they wanted to play defensive back.
Yeah, he did have some defensive backs.
And I, sometimes when you hear that, to me, that's when I think, well, that's what you should do. Especially some of the schools that were like, I think Alabama was telling him they wanted to be defensive back. If Nick Saban tells me I'm a defensive back, I'll go and play defensive back and then try to convince him to let me play offense, because Nick Saban said that to me. And no disrespect to Art Briles, but, Art Briles also, everyone wanted to be a wide receiver. Phil Bennett had to wrestle some guys away.
Blake Lynch.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that sometimes was a knock on the Baylor wide receivers is what happens when they went to the NFL. Art Briles' job was to win at Baylor.
Yeah.
And I know some coaches, and Rule and others, also have the philosophy of making sure that when they're done, they're also pro-ready. And some of them were. Some of them emotionally weren't. Some of them just weren't physically. And some of them, it was just a situation where they couldn't play a certain way because of how they had been taught for 3 to 5 years.
And maybe... And that was just maybe the way that, look, Art Briles is not the coach anymore because of a lack of accountability, and being a professional athlete is all about accountability. I mean, I know I'm boiling that down to its very basic essence with Coach Briles, but maybe that does translate when you do get to live a bit of a rock star lifestyle before you've kind of earned it. You can get to the NFL and all of a sudden you've got to work a little harder, or somebody's after you a little bit, and it comes after you. And I'm not trying to knock Briles, but maybe that's what the deal was.
Yeah. All right.
I always kind of took that quote a little weird, because I absolutely agree with and understood what he was saying, is that all he was supposed to do was win football games at Baylor. He wasn't worried about having 5 first-round draft picks, but at the same time, it's very important to have lots of draft picks and guys go off in the pros and have success. And I think that they just felt they were ultimately going to have that build up over time, especially with the trajectory that they were on. But yeah, I always took that quote kind of 2 different ways, because I understood his point, but at the same time, I think we all had a whole heck of a lot of fun talking NFL draft picks from Baylor this past year. So sure that matters.
We absolutely did. All right, thank you very much, Paul. Let's go backwards. John McClain, David Hellman, DallasCowboys.com. We had Dejanay Carrington, Stanford women's basketball senior guard, who's transferring to Baylor at Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics. Tom Flores, former Raiders head coach and 4-time Super Bowl champion as a player, assistant coach, and twice as a head coach.
And apparently a future frequent guest.
Yes, apparently he's going to start co-hosting the show with us. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
And he's been so good back and forth with me on setting up the segment. And that's like Andre Dawson tomorrow, Hall of Famer. Kurt Warner coming up this week, Hall of Famer. It's been so much fun to get in touch with some of these guys. Also today, we Jerry Edwards, head football coach at Harker Heights on the UIL, saying that perhaps on Monday, June 8th, or at least a report, there might be some limited strength and conditioning opportunities on campus. And then also Dominic Ziegler, who played at Harker Heights, who's now at Killeen High, former Baylor wide receiver on many things in his career as well. All right? Craig Smoke?
I'm good.
Good. Dylan Chapman, do you have any positive vibes with me yet? It's been we're 7 weeks into this thing.
You know that I love you. I don't know why you do this.
Hey, by the way, downstairs for all of you, there's a Tupperware container with some gumbo.
Oh, that's awesome.
I said that when I got here. None of you reacted to that. There's a Tupperware. I feel like I'm the team mom and cooking dinners for
slices.
for my college.
And juice boxes.
Juice boxes and orange slices.
Yeah. If you brought Capri Sun one day,
I'm going to bring tomorrow bologna sandwiches with a slice of cheese.
You know what, though? Capri Sun, I would never go out and buy it myself, but if you're finishing up a practice and a team mom's got the cold Capri Sun, it's better than anything else.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
For Paul Catalina, who runs the mothership, thanks to Brian, Ashley, and Colt, Grayson, Jason King, everybody else involved. Thank you for listening, our great sponsors. Thank you for listening whenever you do, however long it might be. I'm David Smoke. Good night on Sikkim 365 Radio.